Hey guys, welcome back for another Versus video. Today we're going to be playing Legacy. I'm Charles Gindy, and we're going to be playing against David McDarby. I'm playing White Weenie. Today, basically, our most important cards are our one-drops, which are Aether Vials, Mother of Runes, and Swords to Plowshares. I kind of tried to put them in casting cost order for you. Aether Vial is our most important card. It acts as our Soul Ring, which lets us play all of our creatures for free while still taxing them. Because that's kind of what our deck wants to do, is make their deck a little bit worse by kind of gaining a mana advantage and creature advantage all at the same time. Swords to Plowshares is the premier removal spell of the format. Obviously, we're going to be playing 4 of those. And then Mother of Runes, while it doesn't really attack or block or ever activate, just it being in play is more important than anything else. As long as this is in play, they can't really kill any of your creatures, and if they decide to kill one of your creatures, then they're not killing Mother of Runes, which means they can't kill your next creature, and they use 2 spells. Thalia, one of the key creatures to our deck, basically taxing them, making all their spells cost much more, since our spells are only these 4 Aether Vials, 4 Swords to Plowshares, and then some equipments, which our next creature helps us with, which is Stoneforge Mystic. It goes and gets our Umazawa Jete or a Batter Skull and cheats them into play for 2 mana. So even if we have Thalia in play, as long as we have a Stoneforge Mystic, we can still get these guys into play. Then, since our deck doesn't really interact like most of the other decks, which Hand Disruption or counter spells, so Thoughtseize, Inquisition, or Force of Will, Daze, Spell Pierce type effects, we have Phyrexian Revoker to kind of answer a lot of threats that are going to get into play since we have no way to stop them. Like, since his Divining Top, Sneak Attack, it also shuts down creatures like opposing Grim Lavamancers, Deathrite Shamans, etc., etc. Then we got Mangara of Korondor, which looks like a pretty mediocre creature at a 3-mana 1/1, but it interacts very well with our Karakas. Basically, we can tap it and remove target permanent from the game and return it to our hand with our Karakas while this ability is still in the stack. Since it reads tap : this ability stacks without it just removing itself from the game, which also is comes to our next card, which is Flicker Wisp. Also, if we have Aether Vial on 3, Flicker Wisp asks, same with Mangara. You can tap it, activate it, and Flicker Wisp it out. Flicker Wisp, same body type as a Vidalian Click, a 3/1 flying for 3, but it has a interaction where it can blink out our Stoneforge Mystic or blink out our Phyrexian Revoker and name a different card, or just remove one of their blockers from the game until the end of the turn. So, also, since it says at end of turn, if we Aether Vial it in at the end of turn step, we can exile something from play for our entire turn. Then we have Aven Mind Sensor, just another good 3 that kind of stops them from tutoring, disrupting their mana, because a lot of people play fetch lands. Since we don't have any fetch lands, it doesn't really affect us at all, but it doesn't affect us at all anyway since it says opponent. And then Mirran Crusader, the last card, which seems kind of out of place because everything else kind of does something or is a creature with an enter the battlefield ability, but this is just a generic dude. But it being pro-green and black means it dodges one of the premier removal of the format, Abrupt Decay. It stops Terramorgoyf and Nimblemongers, 2 of the hardest creatures to kill in the format, and Deathrite Shaman, Dark Confidant. It's just very hard to kill and pretty good, very good with our equipment, getting double the counters off Jide or Batter Skull triggering twice. So yeah, then we have our mana base, which we have 9 planes, lots of basic lands, dodging those wastelands. Plus our deck is pretty mana hungry with a lot of 3s. Not as many, not a lot of the decks play this many 3s. Their deck's mana curves are very tight on 1 and 2s in Legacy, but with so many 3s, we have to play a lot of basics to make sure we can use our land if we don't draw our Aether Vial. Then we have 4 wasteland, teams up with Thalia very well, and Mangara of Korondor, since this can just exile their lands. We can just get them really quick. And then we have Rashadan Port, also same thing. We're taxing them out of the game while just beating them down with small creatures. For Karakas, this seems like a lot, but it teams up very well with Mangara. We want to draw that combo. Also protects our Thalia And against any of the premier creatures of the format that are legends, we can just bounce them. We can continue to bounce their Vidalian Click so they can't attack us, or we can bounce their Emrakul if they show them until that into play, or reanimate a Grizzlebrand into play. We can just bounce it back into their play. And then our last utility lands are Horizon Canopies, which the damage is kind of big, but we don't have fetch lands, so it's not going to hurt us as bad. And the fact that it sacks to draw a card is very important, since we don't really have any card filtering or card advantage at all. We can use this as a land early and a card later. And that's pretty much it for the main deck. Now let's head over to the sideboard. And here's our sideboard. Now, for the sideboard, we have kind of an Enlightened Tutor package going. Enlightened Tutor can be brought in anytime we bring in pretty much any of our sideboard cards if we really want to. Since when we bring in Rest in Peace against any of the main graveyard decks such as Dredge, we can just Enlightened Tutor for Rest in Peace and shut them completely out. Same thing with when we're playing against Storm. Since we don't have any of the premier hand disruption or counter spells, we really have to just get an Aethersworn Canonist into play as soon as possible. So Enlightened Tutor for Aethersworn Canonist really helps us there. We do have Mindbreak Trap, which in our mono white deck might seem a little weird since it's a blue card, but if an opponent casts 3 or more spells this turn, you may play it for 0 rather than paying Mindbreak Trap's mana cost. Basically, for 0 mana, we can counter all of their Storm cards because it exiles any number of target spells. So all those Storm triggers go on the stack, and then we just, for 0 mana, exile all of them, so they'll never be able to tendrils us out as long as we have one of these in play. Then we have Ura Silence, which kind of seems like a weird card, but it's mainly there for the Tezzeret deck that's been picking up in popularity that Chris Anderson recently won an open with. Also, you can Enlighten Tutor for it, but just having a nice disenchant in your sideboard is sometimes a good thing to have. It's also good against the Miracles deck, which ends up running a lot of artifacts or enchantments such as Counterbalance and Senses Divining Top. And then we just have a couple other one-ofs. We have an extra Umezawa's Jite, which we bring in against the Stoneblade matchup, any mirror matchup, any creature deck. We're going to be bringing this in against pretty much a general amount of decks. This is going to be one of the most sideboarded in cards. Then we have Sword of Light and Shadow. It could help us against burn since it gains life. It could help us in against any of the white decks, any of the black decks, obviously, since it can also just help us against control, since recurring most of our creatures is good, since we talked about how efficient they are and how they give us effects when they come into play. And then finally, we just kind of have a catch-all in our Oblivion Ring. It's nice that we can tutor for it. It's good against the any of the Show and Tell decks. We can Show and Tell into play, hit an Emrakul or an Omniscience the second it comes into play, which that's another thing about the Ura Silence. Actually stops the Dream Halls version really well, meaning they only have to draw exactly Show and Tell to get their deck to go off, because once we have an Ura Silence in play, they can't cast their Dream Halls, letting them cast their Omniscience. But that's pretty much it for the sideboard. Hopefully we'll be able to have a good games against McDarby, and we'll see if we can beat them with Mother of Runes and Thalia.